This is for entertainment purposes only. This short story is only for people over the age of 18.
The wake smelled like booze. When I walked into Grandpa's house, that smell took me right back to college, even though it was summer break. Family members I hadn't seen in years were all around, drinking and telling stories about Grandma. There was a trifold stand with pictures of Grandma all throughout her life. She was a stunning brunette in her youth. It was amazing that she went from a sex object that actually appeared on magazines to hanging on Grandpa's arm, 10 years younger than him. I looked around for Grandpa.
"Where's Grandpa?"
I asked Dad, as he got another refill at the bar being manned by a cousin I don't remember.
"Upstairs."
Dad said, dropping a bill into the tip jar.
"Leave him alone. Let him mourn in peace. When he wants to come down, he will."
My dad is really smart, but not in all things. I treaded up the carpeted stairs to find Grandpa in his library. It was originally Aunt Ingalia's room, but as time moved on and children moved out, Grandpa put more and more books in the now cozy and warm room.
"Grandpa,"
I asked, poking my head in. Grandpa looked like many old men. His head and body were the same shape, much like potatoes, but different proportions. His hair was white and thin on top of his head. His glasses were thick, and recently he'd had to scrap his gold wire frames for chunkier black plastic, which I know he hates. Now he sat in his easy chair with a yellow photo album in his lap.
"John, come on in, have a seat,"
Grandpa said, patting the other easy chair next to his.
"Everyone's drinking all your liquor downstairs,"
I said, coming in and sitting down.
"Not all of it,"
Grandpa said, lifting a half-full bottle of Jack Daniels. He undid the top with one hand, while still holding onto the bottle, and tipped the glass bottle with the black label to his lips.
"You're not drinking, are you?"
Grandpa asked.
"I'm still only 20.
I said with a shrug.
Besides, Mom and Dad claim I am their designated driver. I'm fine with that, but I got out of them. I am in no way responsible for getting them into the house when we get back. And I'll be damned if I'm going to clean the car if they get sick."
"Good boy,"
Grandpa said with a nod.
"Always get something out of people if they want something from you."
"I was told not to bother you while you mourn,"
I stated, looking at the photo album.
"I have a house full of people. I expect to be bothered, so I'm bothering myself,"
Grandpa said, and from the photo album, he plucked a small picture of a smoking hot blonde. She had long blonde hair, a large pair of breasts, probably fake, a slim athletic body, and in the picture, she had on a stylishly ripped top barely covering her breasts, and she was lowering her thong bikini bottoms.
"Wow,"
I said, looking at the woman.
"That's your grandma,"
Grandpa said, and I felt dirty.
"Wait, what?"
I said, looking at the picture. Her eyes did match Dad's.
"Not the woman everyone is mourning over downstairs, but your father's real mother,"
Grandpa said with a sigh.
"Dad never said anything,"
I said slowly.
"Your father doesn't know,"
Grandpa said, and I felt like my world had suddenly become heavier.
"John, do you believe in magic?"
"No,"
I said flatly.
"I've always heard of magic more like weaponized psychology."
"That's one way of looking at it,"
Grandpa said with a nod.
"I would agree with you on that, for just about every form of magic, except for one."
Grandpa paused for a while. His eyes were on the blonde in the photograph. I handed back the picture.
"If you hadn't just told me my real grandmother is not the woman in all the pictures downstairs, but the one right there, I wouldn't want to hear about magic."
I said this and then added,
"But now I have to know."
"I was driving a truck."
Grandpa started.
"It was the summer before I went to med school, and the only job I could find was transporting a bull to different farms for studding. Do I need to tell you what that is?"
I shook my head.
"I was coming back from one long day of waiting for the bull to do his thing with a cow, and the sun was setting, and if it wasn't for the sun being in front of me, I probably would have missed the cloud of dirt and dust that had been kicked up. I had just seen what I thought was a car wreck."
Grandpa paused and took another swig of his drink. I still marveled at how he was able to open and hold the bottle with one hand.
I got there, the sun had almost completely set, and I found a slightly burning and completely mangled car, and the guy that had crawled out. He was covered in blood, but not from the crash. I could see in the dim light there were at least 2 bullet holes on his chest, bleeding really badly. His legs didn't seem to work as he weakly tried to drag himself from the car. I was going to at least put pressure on the wounds, but the guy, some white guy with a bad haircut and a horrible peach-colored tie, he shoved into my hand this.
That's when Grandpa pulled from his pocket a little crystal. I was mildly underwhelmed. It looked like an orange quartz crystal. It looked like something my younger sister Julie would claim had spiritual powers. The crystal just sat on the photo album like it was nothing more than the rock it seemed to be.
Then the guy just dropped.
Grandpa said with a distant look in his eyes.
I checked for a pulse, but there was nothing there. So I went 12 miles to the nearest phone, not like today with everyone having a cell phone in their pocket. Back then I went until I found a really rustic gas station and called the sheriff. Then I drove that poor tired bull back to where the crash was. The body was gone, and so was the license plate of the car. The car was still smoking, and there was clearly blood on the ground where the guy had been, but the guy was gone. I didn't mention the crystal to anyone. I must have talked to those sheriff guys for 3 hours, but I never said anything about the crystal, and I didn't know who the man was, where he came from, or why he was shot, which they took my word for.
Did you ever find out who the guy was?
I asked, interested in the story.
Never.
Grandpa said with the shake of his head.
I didn't even know the crystal was magical for nearly a year.
Really?
I asked, really interested now.
I kept the crystal, and even worked on putting it on a necklace.
Grandpa said with a grin.
The damn thing kept slipping out of the wire I was using. It was nearly a year and a half later. I was fiddling with it, like some worry stone or something, and saw this really sexy waitress at a restaurant while holding the crystal. I won't go into details, some things are private, but I quickly realized the crystal. If I was holding it, any woman would obey anything I thought at them, even if it completely changed their entire way of thinking, believing, feeling, everything.
Mind control?
I asked, confused.
Seemed like it.
Grandpa said with a shrug.
The woman would think they were doing what they wanted, but really it was what I wanted, but they didn't notice anything out of the ordinary, even if it was blatantly pointed out to them. I say that because when I first met your grandma, I didn't have the crystal on me. I was in pre-med, and my life was classes, homework, the gym, and sleep. I was not going to be one of those fat doctors that had to wear extra-large scrubs. I trained for 2 hours every day at pump-up gym near school. That's where I met Mary.
That was her name, Mary?
I asked.
Yeah.
Grandpa said and sighed.
Mary Angola Shokin. I was in love with her as soon as I saw her. Granted, I was doing some powerlifting with a bar on my shoulders, and she was waiting for me to finish. When I did, and after I closed my mouth, I offered to take the weights off the bar. Mary waved me off and actually put on more weight. I was kicking myself for not having my crystal right then and there. I want you to understand how I felt about Mary.
Grandpa said, plucking another picture from the album. It was a less flattering picture of Mary. She looked like she had just finished a workout, covered in sweat, her blonde hair sticking to her body. Her eyes were unfocused, and her mouth hung open. Despite all that, she still looked amazing, more human.
That first day, I admit I hit on her. She hit back. We talked for hours. I learned more about her than I did about any of the other women in my life.
You had other women?
I teased.
You were a player?
I had a crystal that could make women do whatever I wanted.
Grandpa told me calmly.
I did things that since I was young and stupid, could be forgiven. You could call me a player, but really, I had women flat out acting like slaves to me. I treated women like they were disposable playthings. Mary, she was so different. I didn't just want her to love me, but I wanted to love her, and I think I did that first day. I took her on dates after that. I saw so many movies in that time period of my life. I think Mary was shocked that I was sacrificing sleep and school to be with her, that she actually got mad at me. I used the crystal on her. I shouldn't have done that.
You made her into a slave?
I asked, shocked.
No, not a slave.
Grandpa said, pulling out another photo. He and Mary were getting married. It looked like a candid shot at the last minute with Grandpa younger in a cheap suit and Mary in a white dress that wasn't a wedding dress, but close enough. They were before a small chapel someplace.
I made her love me, more than a human should love. I hated it. Mary went from a person to an animal. She thought ripping off my clothes and forcing me to have sex with her was a great idea. She didn't know I implanted that in her mind. I implanted how horny she was. I implanted how much she needed me inside of her. I implanted how desperate she was to do anything and everything I could possibly want. It wasn't Mary. It was a shadow of her.
You make having a sexy woman want to fuck you relentlessly sound like a bad thing.
I tried to joke. Grandpa didn't want to joke.
It was a bad thing.
Grandpa said, looking at the wedding photo.
It wasn't Mary. I wanted Mary back. It took me days to figure out how to give Mary her personality back. She wasn't happy. She was mad that I rejected her. She was mad I had controlled her. She was mad that I didn't keep her obedient to me. She was mad in general. She didn't talk to me for a week. I don't remember much of that week, but I remember the loss I felt. I sent all my slaves away. Now that I knew how to give them back their personalities, I did just that, and with a small command to not want to hurt me in any way. When Mary came back, she did hurt me. I'd never been slapped by a woman before. It stung my face and my soul. Then she insisted I take her down to the closest bar and buy her a drink. I did. We got drunk. We laughed. We had a good time. She fell asleep in my arms, fully clothed. A month later we got married.
Grandpa said with a smile.
I got the cheapest ring, but Mary loved it. We were so happy then.
Grandpa sighed, and I knew what was coming next.
9 months to the day of Mary and I getting hitched, Kyle was born.
Grandpa said and then looked at me.
Your father was a wild baby. He fought coming out. I always thought Kyle knew something was wrong and was trying to tell us. Mary held Kyle for all of about 10 minutes, and then the pain started. Blood. Lots of blood. I was an orderly, not at St. Jude's, but at West Memorial, but even then, I knew there was a problem. None of the nurses seemed to think it was serious. I begged, screamed as loud as Kyle, and it wasn't until Mary passed out that the nurses knew something was really wrong.
There was a tear running down Grandpa's face. I looked for tissues, but he wiped it away with the back of his hand.
I was torn between taking care of Kyle and taking care of Mary.
Grandpa stated with a hitch in his voice.
In the end, they took Kyle to be with the other infants, and I stuck with Mary. She never regained consciousness. She bled out on the operating table. I was numb. I didn't understand what happened on an emotional level. I knew on a biological level what had happened. A ruptured uterus. The doctor even said it was a miracle Kyle made it to term without an issue. I put Mary in the ground while I was holding Kyle.
Then, how did Grandma become, well, Grandma?
I asked curiously.
I needed to work.
Grandpa stated.
I needed money to support Kyle and myself. I didn't want to put Kyle in daycare. So, I picked a woman to be my new wife and Kyle's mother. Daisy was a good fit. She'd been in a few magazines and was sexy in a cute way. She was considerably younger than me, but she saw Kyle, and Kyle saw her, and that was that. I used the crystal to make Daisy love me and marry me. I also made her agree to never tell anyone about your father not being her child.
I always wondered why there weren't pictures of Grandma pregnant with Dad.
I said, thinking back about the photos downstairs.
Trust me, Mary didn't want pictures of her pregnant either.
Grandpa said.
Daisy and I had 2 beautiful daughters. Ingolia and Rose were gifts from God. I'm sure at some point someone in the family will do a DNA test and find out that Kyle is only half related to Ingolia and Rose. That will be a very uncomfortable conversation.
And telling them about the crystal.
I added.
No one will know about the crystal from me.
Grandpa said, picking up the small angular stone.
I'm not going to tell anyone.
He dropped it into my lap.
If you tell anyone about it, that will be up to you.
You're giving it to me?
I said, shocked.
I don't need it.
Grandpa stated with a shrug.
You're young, in college, for something?
Electrical engineering.
I said with a little pride.
That means you should be smart enough to not do anything stupid with that.
Grandpa said, nodding his head at the crystal still sitting on my pants leg.
Just remember, there will be someone out there you can love. You know her when you find her. Accept her, good and bad. No one will ever be perfect for you, but with some rough edges, you have something to hold on to.
Where did you get that line?
I asked.
Don't ask.
Grandpa said and looked and sounded tired.
I'm going to stay up here for a little longer. Make sure your father doesn't vomit into the fireplace again.
Again.
I asked, wanting another story, but Grandpa waved me off. I left with the crystal in my pocket. It wasn't in my pocket with my cell phone. I didn't want to scratch the screen. It still felt like I had a loaded gun on me. Could I really control women? Did I want to? The simple answers were maybe and yes. Who could I control? Do I want women fawning all over me like I'm a sexy rock star? Did I want women ripping their clothes off in front of me? Again, the simple answers were yes and yes. What haunted me were a few things. 1, I really liked the look of a woman with muscles. She may have been my grandma, but I never knew her. And she looked damn sexy with that muscle tone and abs. Was I attracted to muscular women? I didn't have a simple answer. The other idea that haunted me was Grandpa throwing away everyone else for his one love. Could I ever do something like that? I wasn't sure, but I'd like to think someday I will.
The end. This was a work of fiction. Any similarity between people, living or dead, is purely coincidence. This scenario did not, or should not, have happened in real life. Thank you for listening.